This is Pevensey Bay. It looks tranquil enough today, but on the 27th of September 1066, William the Bastard, Duke of Normandy, lay just off that shore in his flagship, the Mora. On the morning that William invaded, 7,000 slightly seasick men and 3,000 pretty scared and nervous horses would have been hauling gear, arms and armour up this beach. And it would have been tough work. They had no idea what was waiting for them, and all that they knew was that their lives were in serious danger. I'm Dr. Rory Cox, a lecturer in medieval history at the University of St Andrews. I'm fascinated by war. We think of war as destructive, and of course it is, but war creates as much as it destroys. Some of our greatest technological achievements have been forged in the fires of war. Communications, transport, metallurgy, laws, language. These are changed permanently by the outcomes of war. Personal relationships, literature and stories are all the product of war. I want you to come with me on some battle walks, where we'll look at the history of warfare, the individuals who fought them, and explore some of the most beautiful landscapes in the world. Because war can be beautiful and horrific at the same time. It can forge a society, or it can destroy a society. It can bring individuals together, or it can tear them apart. These are the things that I'm interested in, the war and the stories of the people that fought them. As soon as they arrived, William sent some of his men to erect the wooden fortress at Pevensey Castle. Others he sent out into the countryside to pillage, to steal, and to bring back livestock. The Bayeux tapestry shows his soldiers bringing back pigs, cattle, and sheep to butcher here on the beach where they were spit roasted on barbecues. The lands around here suffered so much that 20 years later, in William's great tax document, the Domesday Book, this region was still described as Wasta, wasteland. Behind me is the Norman fort of Hastings. This is the exact spot where William and his men erected the second of their flat-pack wooden forts, and the Bayeux tapestry shows them building the motte and the men squabbling in the background. On the other side you can see Pevensey in the far distance. Today that's just around 12 miles along the coast. In 1066 it was closer to 25 miles. William's men marched with full armour and supplies, carrying their chainmail hauberks and their weapons. That's like marching a marathon with a 9-year-old on your back, and they did it in just one day. Why were William and his Normans here at all? The truth is, neither he nor Harold had a particularly good claim to the throne. Harold was Edward the Confessor's brother-in-law, William his first cousin, once removed. The truth is that without a direct male heir, Edward had made promises to both men, and the riches, glory and power of the Kingdom of England was a great prize. William, convinced of his right and with papal support, brought his army here after almost a year of planning. This is the place where Harold Godwinson gathered his army, Coldbeck Hill, just above the modern town of Battle. They would have encamped here at the Hoar Apple Tree, sleeping under bushes, finding shelter under trees, finding food where they could. As they waited for dawn, Harold's men would have begun to arm themselves. But what were those arms? Well, the elite soldiers would have worn long chainmail hauberks, reaching down to the knees and weighing as much as 20 kilograms. They would have carried swords, spears and shields, and some of them the age-old Anglo-Saxon weapon of the double-handed axe. The Normans would have had much the same armaments, but crucially, they rode their horses into battle, while the Anglo-Saxons dismounted and fought on foot. It's hard to imagine now that 950 years ago, this very spot was full of the smells and sounds of thousands of men and animals. And this beautiful local landmark, itself the sign of a bygone era, marks a much deeper, ancient history of these islands, where Harold waited to fight the battle that would be his last. Having been informed of Harold's arrival, William hastily marshalled his troops and set off north. His army, 7,000 men, 3,000 horses, would have stretched for 2 to 3 miles behind him. He set up his command post here at Telham Hill, and in the distance, at Coldbeck Hill, where the windmill now stands, his enemy, Harold Godwinson, gathered his army. These two massive forces, 7,000 men apiece, would have been bigger than most medieval cities. The effort just to get them here, let alone do the fighting, was momentous in itself. I'm here at Battle Abbey, the site, supposedly, of where Harold fell, killed by an arrow in his eye. Now, historians still bicker about the exact location of the battle, but regardless of where it was fought, or if Harold was killed by an arrow, this battle was singularly important. It was important for two reasons. The first was how long it lasted. This battle was fought from 9 AM in the morning to 6 PM in the evening, when most medieval battles lasted an hour or two at most. The second, and most important, is how decisive it was. A single battle on a single day determined the course of English and British history for centuries to come. The Norman victory here brought this island nation into the continental sphere of influence. It changed its language, it changed its laws, and altered the course of history forever.